Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Rennie. I'm a mixed media artist, and in today's video I'm going to be sharing a really fun technique that I've been playing around with recently, inspired by a couple of other artists, Louise, Jannetta, and Sozer. So thank you for sharing your experimentation with this technique. I also wanted to have a bit of a theme to this exploration. So Valentine's Day is around the corner. I think every day should be Valentine's Day, but I love heart shapes. So I thought, wouldn't it be fun to do all kinds of different heart shapes doing this process? I think I got a little carried away. I think I now have more hearts than I know what to do with, but I'm sure I'll find something fun to do with them. So these are really great for any kind of mixed media art, or if you're making cards or you love to journal. I was really happy with the way this turned out, and I hope that you will be inspired by this and try this really, really fun technique. So let's dive in. So I'm just starting off with some tea bag paper. I love tea bag paper because it's so robust. It resists ripping, and it's really great for using in collages. So here I've just simply cut out heart shapes into a bunch of different fabrics and textiles. And I've used lace and this sort of mesh. I've used plastic table placemats and paper doilies. So really a sort of a wide range of things to see what kind of results I can get from these different fabrics. So I've got my paper actually taped down to a silicone mat so that it doesn't stick as it dries. You can also place a piece of paper down on, I think, any kind of plastic sheeting will also prevent the paper from sticking. So I've just wet down the surface of the paper and then just placing the heart shapes over the surface. Those are the bigger ones there, are paper doilies. I'm wetting them down a little bit. And then the thicker fabrics, the lace fabrics, when you see my hand go off to the side, I'm just soaking them in a little bit of water and then squeezing off the excess, just so that the fabric doesn't suck up too much of the paint. So wanting it to at least be less wasteful with the paint. So if the fabric's a little damp, then it's going to suck up a little bit less pigment, or at least water down that paint a little bit. I'm speeding up the video in some places just because it's a very repetitive kind of a thing that's happening. And here in all these little bottles, what I've done is I've put a little bit of highly pigmented acrylic paint and added just a little bit of medium, so a more fluid medium. I think I used different things. I've used Golden's GAC 100, and I've used some other really thin down medium, and then water to really water down. And I also explored using these, which are inks. I think they're called, they're by Ranger. They're different types of inks that come in a spray bottle. And I feel like these paints could probably have been a little bit more liquid, but using a spray bottle, water's just added to make them a little bit more fluid. So we want the paint to be able to move around across the surface of the fabric to soak through to the underside of the fabric and into the paper. And it's just randomly choosing different colors. I mean, just about any color can be used here. I'm probably using some pretty basic colors, traditional colors, I guess you would associate with a heart shape, but I've also explored with other colors as well. And here I'm just using a silicone tool to help the paint move around across the surface of the fabric and then hopefully through to the other side. I've got two sheets going here at once, but I'm focusing the video on one of them just because it would be too far away otherwise. So here I'm also using acrylic inks. I've got Liquitex acrylic inks and Daler-Rowney acrylic inks. I don't remember the colors I used. It's basically just, you just want to play intuitively. I also love the combination of pink and yellow together. So that's why I've gone in with some yellow here. And basically it's just adding layer upon layer of color. Kind of hard to know when to stop, to be honest, but that's what experimentation is all about. So I've done a series of these on tea bag paper with more vibrant colors, and then I did some more with more of a muted palette. I've done some on tea bag paper, and I also did a series of these on watercolor paper, just because I wanted some different weights of paper that I could combine. And also just curious to see the difference between how the tea bag paper responded versus the watercolor paper. Of course, I'm going in with some metallics because I love playing around with metallic paints. And the Liquitex acrylic inks come in some really nice metallic colors. Coming in there with a little bit of more of those spray inks. And the only thing to keep in mind when working with those spray inks is that they are water soluble. So if you're gluing or painting or doing or anything over the top of them, you usually have to seal them. So here's what it looks like once the paint is dry. I'm leaving them to dry, and you don't want them to dry completely because they'll stick to the paper. So it's finding that perfect place. So here, peeling up, so satisfying to be peeling up the pieces of lace and revealing what's left underneath. Now, some of these turned out better than others, and that's just part of the process, right? So more of these lacy, and you can see the gold coming through. This one, as you'll see, didn't turn out very vibrantly, or you can't really see any definition, but that's okay because they're all going to be cut out anyway. That thing that I'm lifting right there is actually a baby wipe. So really any kind of fabric can be used. Anything you have around the house that you don't mind cutting up can be used to experiment with this project. I have a tendency to go to thrift stores and collect fabrics and papers and all sorts of things because I just love to experiment so much. This was the paper doily, and these dried the quickest, so you really have to sort of be on the ball. If that had dried completely, I would not have been able to pull that off the surface of the tea bag paper, but luckily it was still a little bit damp, and so it only stuck in certain places. This one here was that thick plastic placemat, which resulted in a really cool effect. This also was a mesh kind of a placemat that I cut up, and that's got a really cool effect as well. The thinner fabrics dried more quickly than the thicker ones. So again, when you're playing around with this technique, you have to keep coming and checking in to make sure that they're not fully sticking to the surface. So some of these took maybe an hour to dry, and some of them took a little bit longer. Some of the thicker, lacy ones took a little bit longer to dry. I really fell for this technique because it was similar to gel printing in the sense that you're not sure what you're going to reveal when you lift up your paper or lift up your fabric in this case. So everyone's a little surprise. Plastic stuck quite a bit to these, but as you can see, it's quite stuck on there, but it's still not ripping that tea bag paper. I think there was only one of them that ripped, and it wasn't even the tea bag paper. I think it was with the watercolor paper. This mesh really stuck on. And here again, you can see it's stuck on the paper, but it's not ripping the paper. So I'm going in and doing it again. Like I said, I got a little carried away with this process. I wanted to keep trying different colors and maybe that's part of my personality too. When I sort of resonate with something and it's really fun, I just want to keep doing it. And you can never have too many collage papers, right? So again, this part is sped up just because it's so repetitive. But it's just adding more and more color, spritzing with water. And some of them I had put a little bit too much paint, so you see I came in there with a bit of tissue paper just to lift some of the wetness away. It was a Daler-Rowney, that fluorescent pink, which is just so fun. And I just, you can water down your paints just in a little, Tupperware or, plastic container, and just use a paintbrush to spread it out. I just thought it was really easy with the squeeze bottles. Look at how fun that is with the gold coming through. Even the paper around the hearts, because I end up cutting out all the hearts, but even the paper around the hearts is lovely and can be used for all kinds of projects. Look how cool that is. Sorry about the movement. It's just I wanted to get in close for the lifting of the fabric here, and so I had to use one hand to film and one hand to lift. But you'll have a better look at the final result later on. This mesh one turned out really fun. And that's just the mesh from garlic or onions or something, I don't remember. And then here I'm doing the same technique again, but I've got this on watercolor paper. So I have one of those watercolor pads, where the sheets are all sort of glued together, which makes a really good base for doing this kind of thing because the paper won't buckle. So again, just speeding through this process. And here I think I decided to go for a more limited palette, although I think I deviated on some of them. I'm coming in with tea bag paper over the top just to explore what that would look like. And I think I ended up using some of these as well. So the tea bag paper just to lift away some of the oversaturated areas of the fabrics. So here I'm lifting it away. It's not quite dry, but I think I had to go out somewhere, and I didn't want it to dry completely and stick. I wasn't sure how it was going to work on the watercolor paper. You can see the paints didn't spread out as much as they did on the tea bag paper. This one's still a little bit wet there, but I chose to lift it away because some areas were stuck. You can see there a little bit of the watercolor paper ripped. That one's still a little wet as well. I think I'd chosen to leave that one a few more minutes. But these mesh pieces were quite stuck on there. This is a baby wipe. It's another one of the mesh ones really stuck on there, but luckily the paper didn't rip on these at all. The blue's kind of fun. And I really love the pattern that the plastic table placemats left behind as well. So here, this was a really satisfying thing to do was cutting out all the hearts. And I had sheets and sheets of these because I didn't show the process of doing all of them because it would just be too repetitive. But I actually set myself up watching the Olympics and was just spent a couple hours, I think, cutting out these hearts. It's strangely meditative and satisfying. Look at the texture and the color in those. So fun. Tried to make a variety of sizes and shapes. And if I don't necessarily want to use a heart shape, I can just cut one of these hearts up and use it in a different way. Still pieces of the mesh stuck on there. Isn't that fun? So I feel like I got a nice selection of, more vibrantly colored ones and some more muted tones that I can combine. So I have this little pot here, and it's full of these hearts. So I just wanted to come here and show. I didn't want to show you cutting all of them, but just really happy with how fun these turned out. And I think I have a whole bunch of favorites that I'm going to be using to make cards. I think they'd also be really fun, maybe glued on to thicker card, and you can probably make little ornaments with them. If you like celebrating Valentine's Day, you can hang them up. Maybe use them as bookmarks. So many different things you can do with them. And you can see how many I made, how much I got carried away with making them. I love the gold on these ones. And I'm still going. That's the paper doily. Really cool. Mesh. This one turned out really neat as well. Some lace. Still more. Paper doily one as well, which is really fun. And this one I cut out a heart. I thought I loved the way that seeped around the edges, so I decided to keep that piece. Here's another fun one. I don't know if I like the brightly colored ones better or the more neutral colored ones better. So I'm finally at the bottom of the the container. So a really cool thing is, besides all the papers, what I decided to do was let all of the fabric pieces, the fabric hearts, dry flat. And they just turned out so lovely from having been saturated with all those different colors that I thought, wouldn't it be nice to combine the fabric used to make the papers with the actual papers. So very easily could glue the fabrics, the textiles, to the paper surfaces. So here I'm just showing what it looks like when you combine the fabric with the paper. Isn't that lovely? So many fun things, combinations. I mean, you could stack 2, you could stack 3. Could easily all be glued together onto a card or canvas. I think I literally sat and did this for hours, just combining the different papers with the textiles. So I haven't glued anything together yet, but I will at some point. Look how fun that is. Just that golden color with the red. It's really lovely. How fun that is. Oh, just so thrilled with it. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this demonstration and it inspires you to give it a try. I'd really love to hear from you and hear what you think of this technique and share your experience with playing around with it. Isn't that fun? Ooh, just so thrilled with them all. Thanks so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. See you next time.